Hello and welcome back, fellow Kislevites here. HeirofCarthage here, or I guess I should be Heir of Ice when talking about Kislev. And today we're going to be looking at an awesome unit mod for Kislev, which adds a lot of units you can see across here. And let's start jumping through them. So I'll start off first by showing you the mod in the workshop screen. It is called Guardians of the North Kislev Unit Pack. It is created by Sato Nozomi, and it adds a lot of units. It also required, at least whenever I did it, for you to subscribe to this English submod, which I'm assuming you can turn on or turn off. I'm guessing that that's just a translation to English, which he mentions here. But in any case, it is a really interesting mod because it adds a lot of units. You can see that list here, and we'll go through and cover these because I love Kislev, and I'm really curious to see what he's done in adding new units to Kislev and how it might affect their roster. So the things that I would say in the Kislev roster right now that are a bit lacking is you don't really have much anti-large infantry. Most of that work needs to be done by ranged units, which is fine. Like, whenever I look at this, by the way, this unit pack, I'm not looking at it in the sense that, like, CA has really done an injustice to Kislev's roster. I expect that CA gave us part of Kislev's roster because, of course, they're going to bring in extra lords and units with DLC. That's part of their business model. Like it or don't like it, that's what they're going to do. But regardless, since we have mod support, this is something you're able to go out and look at yourself without having to get into DLC, and I love that option. I really appreciate the modders who put the work into this, and I am very much excited to show off that work because I think this one's going to be a lot of fun. So let's take a look at the first unit here that's lined up. This is going to be a mounted Ice Guard unit, which is really cool. It's another bow cavalry, but essentially just puts Ice Guards on horses. They keep a pretty similar attack and defense, weapon strength, all that type of stuff. They don't have a lot of armor, just like when they're on foot. So this is not going to be like a heavily armored horse unit, but it's really cool because it gives you a ranged element that does frostbite. So it's going to be really good at slowing fast-moving enemies, maybe good against like Slaanesh or something like that, especially since Slaanesh lacks a lot of armor. It still packs a decent punch against lightly armored infantry targets, such as other skirmishers. So the Mounted Ice Guard is a really cool unit here. Adds a little bit of depth to the Kislev roster in terms of mobility. Speaking of mobility, there's a unit right next to it, Armored Warbears. There are actually multiple types of Warbears that were added here. Let's cover all of them at once, since we're in the Warbear realm. So let me slide these all over. I should have already had this ready, but here's the other one. So here's the base unit. This is going to be Warbears. It's a very weak unit in terms of survivability. It doesn't really dish out a ton of melee attack or defense, but it's a cheaper unit. And I will go, by the way, before the video's over, back into the loading screen so you can see how much these units cost. Also, I believe it mentions in the mod page where they are recruitable from in terms of buildings. But in any case, Warbears here just provide you a cheaper option to do some AP anti-infantry, but don't expect a lot of staying power with these, because they're a cheaper unit, and you're just not going to get that. The next tier up was the Armored Warbears that we were looking at, so it's a more armored variant of what we just saw, but it also switches to an anti-large variant so that there's different purposes. So these ones are going to come in meant to be against stopping large. The other ones were meant to do cheaper damage against armored units. Then we have the Royal Warbears, which are going to actually be an armor-piercing anti-infantry type unit. So these ones are meant to maybe dig into infantry piles. They have the most armor. You can see that they have a armor sundering effect here as well. So these are going to be a whole different animal altogether. And then there's actually a special Sons of Ursun back here, since we're just on the topic of Warbears. This is like a Regiment of Renown Warbear Rider that got added. Really cool. AP anti-large damage still, frostbite, magic attacks. Very tough unit here. It has a ward save of 10. So yeah, very, very nice unit here to add to the roster. Just gives you additional tools. So that's going to be our Warbear units. Now, let's get back into the lineup, and I'm going to start moving back across what we've got here. Starting here with the Tsarina Guards. Now, this is going to be another really cool Ice Guard type unit. So these do not have a bow. They're just a dedicated spear unit to help protect high-value targets in the Kislev roster. Which this is a really cool add, because Kislev doesn't, typically speaking, like to sit around in a melee, and you do have Ice Guards with glaives, but these ladies are going to be a little more dedicated than the Ice Guards with glaives. They still are fairly low armor. They are, I think, up by 10. Ice Guards usually have about 40. These are at 50. There's some cool stuff here. Look at this piercing ice effect that they get. This has a massive debuff to speed, and then a pretty solid debuff to defense and attack, as well as vigor. So basically, if you put these ladies up on a high-value target, say like Little Grom or other things that you want to keep protected, like a spellcaster or hero, it's going to make them very difficult to take out. However, they themselves are going to be vulnerable to charges since their armor is not particularly high, and they're also going to have to watch out for missile fire. So a very cool ad here with the Tsarina guards. A very fun unit that adds some depth and capability to the Kislev roster. The next unit up is Boka guards. So these are going to be probably most similar in some ways to a Tsar guard, in that they're high armor, but they're an anti-armor, anti-large version. And they have a lot of the get-up and, dress of a winged lancer or a Griffin Legion type unit. So very cool here, armed with axes, anti-large, anti-armor, very high armor themselves, pretty slow speed, which you would expect with such a heavily armored unit, but solid melee attack, decent defense for a unit without a shield, and then decent charge bonus, of course, for infantry. I say decent, it's probably better than average for an infantry unit, coming up with a charge bonus. So a little more aggressive infantry, an anti-large capable infantry for Kislev. Right up next to them is Defenders of the Faith. So this is a hammer infantry. It was added, so very nice unit here. AP anti-infantry variety, pretty high armor at 85. It's not like the highest, but I mean that is pretty high. Solid melee attack, decent defense, actually somewhat comparable to the unit we just looked at in many ways, except this one is dedicated against infantry. Also has a little bit lower charge here. Many of these units were immune to psychology as well, so good stuff here. There's also some abilities to Defend the Faith here, which is going to be a passive augment. You can see its values here, so a unit that can also be a bit of a support as well. So that is going to be the Defenders of the Faith. The next unit up is the Lost of Prague. I believe that this is kind of like a Regiment of Renown type unit, and if we take a look at their stats, very high armor, excellent shield, and a silver shield here, so that's a high missile block chance. You can see they have some fire resistance, spell resistance, physical resistance. Not a ton of each, but they have some of each. They have the Berserk thing here, which is going to make them even stronger, and then they have this defensive stance ability, which is going to make them stronger against a charge. They are unbreakable. This is going to be a tough-as-nails defensive type unit. Now, they have pretty good attack. It's just their weapon strength isn't that high. They have excellent defense. So this unit is going to be very defensive and very good at holding its ground. If we move on to the next one here, we're going to have Ungol Droyaskas. I probably am going to say many of these units wrong, but look at the axes on these guys. That is some sweet design on the axes. I am loving that. So it's a great axe infantry. They are armor-piercing anti-infantry. They also have a debuff to leadership, and it is a big debuff to leadership. So this unit, not like insanely devastating in and of itself. It's going to be pretty good since it's up at 90 armor. But when you look at attack and defense, it's okay, right? And the weapon strength, it's okay. It's nothing special. But with that debuff, I mean, that is going to be huge getting these guys into a fight and taking 16 leadership off of enemies that they get engaged with. They also have this Battle Führer. In fact, a lot of units have this. So if you see this passive ability down here, you can now see what it does. But essentially, the more units they kill, the stronger they get. So it's a capability we've seen on some other units in the game, and it's being reused here. It's a pretty cool effect. Then we have the Linsk Sea Guards. This is a gun great axe infantry, similar to Streltsy, except you can see here, very nice armor. They even have a shield, which is pretty cool to see a shield, so they'll be a little more resistant. Kind of like Streltsy, though, not amazing melee attack and defense stats, but pretty solid weapon damage. These ones actually have a dedicated anti-infantry bonus. They still hit from 160 range with good ammunition, good damage, and shield breaker, so they are going to be able to help lower the missile resistance of units that they are hitting. So very nice unit there with the Sea Guards. And then moving on, next to them we've got the Brotherhood of the Bear, which this one is interesting. This one has higher speed than your typical Kislev unit. Very lightly armored, and it's going to be a very powerful anti-large attack that they pack, although it's not armor-piercing per se. And the attack is good. The defense is also pretty good, but again, very low armor. So this unit is not going to have a bunch of staying power once it starts taking damage in and of itself, but a very interesting anti-large tool that gets added to the Kislev roster, not to mention some pretty cool skins here. They're literally skins, like wearing bear skins and stuff with the spear. So a very nice addition there. I like that. And moving on down the line, we've got the Heirs of Bane. I already like the name here because of, just having air, but leave it to me. I guess I'm biased in that regard. So the Heirs of Bane are going to be an AP anti-infantry tool with armor sundering. A little bit lighter than some of the other tools we saw earlier. But of course, some of the abilities down here, we've got Berserk, Death Blow, which is an interesting ability to throw on them. So as they get down to their lowest level of hit points, they'll do a little more damage on the way out. They've also got Frenzy and By Our Blood. And then we move over here to the Ungol Drusinas. I'm probably saying this wrong. I have no idea how to pronounce it. This is basically a heavier armored Cursar unit. They have an even better shield and slightly heavier stats here, so that is essentially what these guys are, a little bit heavier version of what we see in the game. And then we got Ungol Warriors here, which are, I would say that these guys are probably most comparable to something, say, like a Saurus Warrior. They're in that mid-tier armor. They don't have amazing melee attack or defense, but they do have some pretty good melee capability because of the bonus versus infantry that they receive. So a pretty cool lower to mid-tier type unit here, added to Kislev's roster that gives some anti-infantry that doesn't have to be ranged. This unit I'm just honestly confused by. These look like Kislev zombies or something. I don't know if these guys are like under the control of the Ice Queen, had a little bit too much warp ice or something to eat. I have no idea what's going on with these guys. The Gosniks, however you say this, basically a zombie unit for Kislev, so it's just meant to get out there and absorb charges and stuff. Very strange unit. And speaking of strange units, here we've got the Frostheart Pegasus Knights. These are Pegasus-mounted ice guards. I have to say I'm a little confused by the color of the Pegasus Knight. Not really sure where that one came from, but I really do like the design of like the armor and the fact that it's an ice guard riding on it, and the ice guard is going to hit very well against large. You know, pretty mediocre armor, all things considered, but that's typical with the Pegasus Knight. They're not quite as heavy. But they're going to really hit hard against large in the charge. So really cool flying addition for Kislev here, because Kislev doesn't do flying. So that is a very interesting addition to their roster. Just a few units left. Let's take a look at these. Back here, I've got the Kraken Hunters. This is like a Marauder Javelinman, except with the Javelins hit much harder here at 50 missile strength, and it's going to be an anti-large variant too. They also do anti-large weapon damage, though their melee stats, to be honest, are not amazing. It's just decent, like it says there in the stats, but these guys are short range, but they're going to hit really hard against monsters, and they got plenty of ammo. So if you're ended up fighting against big stuff like Bloodthirsters and other big monsters like that, these guys are going to really do the job. So a pretty cool add there. Back here in the back, I really like this unit. This is Griffin Knights. Griffin Legion have kind of frustrated me. I can kind of understand Wing Lancers. They're pretty squishy, and I guess Griffin Legion are just a slightly better version of the Wing Lancers, like with heavier armor and stuff, but I like this version of them because they actually do some AP anti-infantry, and they have a purpose now, which is to help deal damage to armored infantry. So I've always felt like Griffin Legion don't really serve enough purpose other than just being a better winged lancer. And so I like this variant here where they actually have a purpose going after infantry and armor. But anyway, folks, that is the unit pack. What do you all think? Maybe we should get some footage here at the very end with some of these units in action. I will just let that footage be the footage itself. I won't be able to show you every unit, but we'll catch some of them in action. Hope you all enjoyed this. Stick around, check out some of the unit action. We'll be fighting some Warriors of Khorne over there, having some fun with it. HeirofCarthage signing out for now, and tell me what you think once you see all the units in this mod. Of course, if you want to get it yourself, you can go and subscribe. I'll have the link in the description. And of course, we took a look at the mod page so you all can find it yourself. Anyway, check out the footage, and I'll see you next time.